Welcome to the Intuitive Rising podcast. I'm your host, Amy Brooks. This is a podcast that invites you to remember who you are, return to yourself, and rise into your highest and best soul self. Every week, I will be sharing inspiring conversations about topics that hold keys to your awakening. My mission as an international evidential psychic medium, Reiki practitioner, and intuitive mentor is to help you rise into who you were born to be. Enjoy the show. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? I hope everyone is well. Welcome back to another episode of the Intuitive Rising podcast. I'm your host, Amy Brooks, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about Pluto in Aquarius and really what that means for us, right? It's kind of one of those topics. Astrology and different like astrological transcripts are something that I definitely feel like knowledge about, information about is becoming more commonplace, right? Is becoming more mainstream media. More people are hearing about it. But it's one of those topics that seem a bit weighty sometimes and a bit other. And as all spiritual practices can be, right? And one of my things that I really aim to do is to bring kind of the practicalness to spirituality in general, to intuitive living, and today to astrology. So, in particular, with this Pluto in Aquarius transit that's happening and what that really means. So, my focus today is okay, this is happening. What is it all about? What does it mean for us moving forward? I am going to take a moment to tap into spirit during this episode as well, so we can kind of, kind of see what comes in around future things, or if more information wants to be built upon or elaborated on. I do have some notes in front of me of just like jot point forms of things that I want to touch on today. So if Spirit World wants to elaborate on, build upon some of the things that I've written down, then that's where the channeling will come in to play today. So, Pluto in Aquarius, what's that all about? First of all, today is the 20th of November. By the time this episode goes out, it's going to be another week or two. So, hello, future selves. But it did go in. It did switch into Pluto in Aquarius. Let's start over. Pluto entered the sign of Aquarius on November 19th of 2024. Today is November 20th, the day I'm recording this. This is a brand new transit that just started yesterday, and it's going to stay in the sign of Aquarius until 2043, so quite a long time. By the time 2043 rolls around, I will be 63, which is kind of sort of crazy to think about. So this is a long, good old chunk of our lives, right? And firstly, I want to talk a little bit about Pluto in general. So Pluto is an outer planet. So there's outer planets and inner planets in astrology. The outer ones are kind of really focused on the collective and generational, as they are planets that change signs after a long period of time. The inner planets can change in a shorter time period. Like, for instance, having your sun in a sign, right? Your sun in a sign is only going to stay in that sign for 1 month, for 30 days before it flips into the next one. Your moon sign is can change every 2.5 days. So those things are very short, right? Those are the inner planets. The outer planets, Pluto being one of them, stays in a sign for a very long time. Therefore, it's thought to be a generational kind of influence on the collective, right? As there'll be a whole generation of people who fit into this, right? So me, for instance, I was born during Pluto and Libra. So the generation I was born in, we're all kind of focusing on that sign of Libra and really what Pluto brings to that sign. That's the generational kind of pull and lesson for my generation. Anyone who is born between yesterday, and sometime in 2043 will be Pluto in Aquarius, bring a totally different lesson, totally different energy into play. So it's an outer planet. It changes every 12 to 30 years, right? So there's still a big range in this. This seems like a long transit for sure. Pluto, astrologically speaking, will influence the ideals and the energy of an entire generation. So like I said, there's a little bit of a karmic focus here, but like generationally, collectively, something that we're all trying to learn about. And if you yourself go back and look up, which would be very easy to do because all you have to do is kind of say where was Pluto on and your birthday. Be able to come up with your sign, whatever that is for your birthday and your generation, and then you can look at kind of the focuses or the key ideals, the key lessons that would be associated with that sign, and you'll probably see that in your upbringing, in your growing up period of how that makes sense for what you're all doing, right? What you're all learning, themes that kind of play out. So Pluto is ruled by Scorpio, okay? And Scorpio is a fixed water sign. And Pluto is associated with transformational trauma. It's associated with shadow work. It's associated with like power struggles and money, finances, all that kind of stuff. And it's a weighty kind of planet sometimes when we think about it. It kind of when I picture Pluto in these terms and really what it is trying to do astrologically, I think of it like a wrecking ball, but like with really good intentions and a really clear path of what it wants to do and to be for everybody's highest and best good. But it's like, I need to it's almost like what Spirit's bringing me in this moment is, see, there's like this decrepit old group of buildings and nobody's living in it. It's just an eyesore. It's nothing can live there. No nature, there's no foliage. Animals can't live there. People can't live there. It's just kind of wasted space. And then having a wrecking ball come and clear it out to make room for the weeds that grow through the pavement, right? For nature to take over. It's kind of like that act of violence, that act of destruction comes in for the betterment in the end. That's really what Pluto is all about in a really tangible, relatable kind of way. So when we say transformational trauma, what that means is kind of like that wrecking ball. It's like taking the things that could keep us playing victim, playing small, keeping separate from each other, keeping from, fulfillment and alignment and joy and happiness and all of that, and transforming it into, like that wrecking ball, into something that actually benefits not only ourselves, but everyone else. So, in kind of blatant terms, what I hear from Spirit is it's time to take all of our crap and make that crap work for us in some way. Rather than kind of keeping us hostage. What can we do with that? How can we take what's not working, what's painful, what's kept us separate from ourselves and from each other, and make it work for us? There's a focus on that. Now, the planet of Aquarius is often talked about as the alien energy. Aquarians. I personally don't know any Aquarians, but one of my children his due date was meant to be an Aquarius. I always say, you just wanted to be a Pisces like your sister is. He was born a week late. But it's kind of this otherworldly, very future focused, very, I think of Aquarian energy as very benevolent. So it's very kind and very compassionate, but it's very progressive. It has like clear sights on what it wants to do. It's kind of like, have you ever heard of that saying, you have to be cruel to be kind? I'm not implying that Aquarians are cruel, not by any means, but the sign of Aquarius and what it brings in and how it relates to Pluto makes me feel like that's kind of a motto. Sometimes, you got to be cruel to be kind. And I feel like that's kind of what the energies are coming in. Like, hey, this might not feel so good in the moment, but it's taking you to a really good place. And in the end, this is kindness, right? This is what we want to do. But very, very future focused, futuristic. is Aquarian, but it's also a fixed sign. Like when we talked about how Pluto is ruled by Scorpio, which is a fixed sign, Aquarius is an air sign. So air is very much associated with communication, technology, the ways in which we innovate, the ways in which we research, the ways in which we communicate with each other. These are and relate to each other. These are all focuses of the air signs in general, and specifically future focus when we're talking about Aquarius. So what I wrote down was Aquarius is very progress focused and for the greater good, but is not afraid to ruffle some feathers. And I definitely feel that in a big way. So when we talk about the next 20 years, 19 years of this cycle, it takes me back to a channeling that I did in late 2019. So this is when I really first started getting into this world. I had been working as a professional medium at that point for about 8 or 9 months, right? So I was working with clients. My knowledge of astrology was very limited at that time. It was much more like I knew it was more than horoscopes. I knew the horoscopes were very general and they were meant to be so it could relate to, more people. But I didn't have a ton of in-depth knowledge about astrology at all. And I wasn't paying attention to transits. I still don't really pay attention to transits unless they're major ones like this. But I had no idea, that Pluto is leaving Capricorn, which it had been in since 2008, and was entering Aquarius in this decade and would be there for another 20 years. Like, that was not on my radar at all. However, I did this channeling around the end of the year in 2019. And it was just kind of spontaneous. I just opened myself up and, like, whatever wanted to come in, came in. And what I remember about that channeling was I wanted to kind of focus on the year 2020. Like, what is the next year bringing to us? And certainly I did tap into some of the collective themes and things like that were going to happen in 2020. No, I didn't predict COVID, but I did feel like, things were definitely going to change. It was going to be kind of a little bit of a chaotic year, and it was going to be kind of a new way of being. But that was really ushering in, and there was much more focus on the latter part of this decade into the 2020s. And it was very focused on 2025 onward, especially heightening around 2027. And so at the time, I didn't understand, and I certainly didn't connect it to this transit or any other thing. But the language that I brought through in that channeling was how the 20s were going to be one of the most transformational time periods, certainly in our lives, and that we would be kind of birthing the new age. Again, didn't really know what that meant at the time. Now I know it's just bringing in a new energy, a new vibration, a new consciousness, right? It wasn't as if, the second coming in any sort of fear-based way, in the sense that, like, life as we know it's going to end in a scary way. That's kind of how I would have thought about things like that back then. But now I know it is a gradual thing, even if it doesn't seem like it's a gradual thing. And it is always for our highest and best good. I don't feel like the rug's going to be totally ripped out from underneath us. In fact, I feel like the rug has already been ripped out from beneath us already. And now some of us are holding on tight to the rug, trying to stay on it, and some of us are letting ourselves fall away from it, right? And that reminds me also of this channeling. So I'm going to give you some words that I brought through in that. Dismantling, right? Rebuilding, restructuring. There was a feeling of the foundation that we stood on collectively crumbling, falling apart beneath our very feet, not in a literal way, much more in a symbolic, spiritual kind of way. And now we're seeing, how that's playing out. And we'll talk about more of that in a moment. But essentially, I'm trying to get to this feeling of, like, the foundation that we've stood upon for hundreds of years served its purpose, but it's not serving its purpose anymore. And it's ready to go. We are ready for it to go, even if we don't know that and we're fearful of doing so. Our souls came here for this time period, for this rebuilding, right? And just like that wrecking ball, I'm picturing Miley Cyrus coming in on it. Just like that wrecking ball and that feeling of like, hey, this might not feel very nice, right? This might not be fun, but hold on, because it's clearing out all the stuff we don't want anymore. It's familiar, so it's safe in some way. It feels supportive in some way, even though it's not supportive at all. If we really were to sit down and think about all of the structures in place that we've had for hundreds of years, say, for instance, the way people work, right? The 9 to 5, the way all that happens, healthcare, education systems, financial systems, political systems, all of that has offered us for so long a sense of safety and security, familiarity, the same. It's like something we can just feel like we can depend upon. However, I feel like what 2020, 2021, 2022 has taught us is all those things that we felt kept us safe and secure were actually not. That there's a lot that's happening that is not for our highest and best good, that is keeping us trapped, that is keeping us small and victim to our circumstances, right? And so when I see this like crumbling, when I saw it back then, what I was seeing was like, okay, we are all of those things that we felt kept us safe and secure. We're starting to see between the lines. We're starting to see the inaccuracies, the mistruths. We're starting to see just like the toxicity and the corruptness of all of that, and we're becoming we're disillusioned, right? We're kind of waking up from the disillusionment, where we're taking the rose-colored glasses off and we're calling a spade, right? And that's what we're doing collectively right now during this time period in the 20s. That's what waking up is right now. It's going, oh my God, like, what are we doing? Who are we doing this for? How is this working for me? And that's what this decade's about. That's what the next decade's about. That's what this collective Pluto in Aquarius is all about. The reason I wanted to bring that up is because it really reminded me, and now I can see the parallels and the similarities of that initial channeling back in 2019 and what's happening now and in this next 20-year cycle, and what that was all trying to tell me. So Aquarius demands collective progress. It is what's best for all. There is not so much of a focus on me from all levels, right? The hierarchy. And it's much more focused on everyone. And Aquarian energy, like I say this, I don't mean this necessarily about like Aquarian suns, Aquarian moons, or rising. So please don't take it personally, Aquarians. I mean in the context of Pluto in Aquarius and what those two things together are doing. There's no need for tact here. It's kind of like, what's the term I'm thinking of when somebody, it's totally left my brain, but tough love. That's what it is. Tough love. It's like, I know what's best for you. I have a very clear picture and direction of where I want to go. This is progress. This is where I'm taking you. I'm not interested and invested in your specific and individual needs. It's what's best for everybody. And we are learning that when everyone is taken care of, then we're a part of that everyone. We're remembering that we're a part of everyone. We have to let go of this notion of hierarchy, of separateness, of that's them and this is me, that's some people and this is me. That is what's dying. And so any system that is built upon that notion must go. So I had an interesting conversation maybe I think it was in the winter. It was whenever Princess Kate Middleton was, it kind of came out about her cancer diagnosis. And I got into this conversation with a couple friends where one person thought that, there's no need for her to be private. She's a princess. Therefore, when you're a princess and you sign up for that and all the different rules, you don't have to like it, but that's what it is. And that's what your role is. And that's what your duty is. And so the world demands to know your private business health information and business, and you give it. And then, there was other opinions where it was like, what? That is so toxic. It doesn't matter if she's a princess. She has a right to hold on to her own personal information and to share it if she wants to in her own time. And she should not be bullied into giving that information before she's ready. And so it was a very back and forth. It wasn't an argument. It was definitely a discussion, and everybody was respecting each other's opinions. However, very, very different opinions. And this has happened 2 years ago, like when Prince Harry's, I guess he's not a prince anymore. You know what I mean? Prince Harry, when his book came out, Spade, there was so much online debate. I actually got unfriended on Facebook over Prince Harry. And it was something about kind of the backlash of what was happening after his book came out, and how dare he, this is so disrespectful of his family and the royal family. And I had essentially said what my opinion was, and that was that I think his mother would be very proud. I think he's a generational curse breaker. I think he has every right to set boundaries within his family, just as we all do. And just because he's a royal does not mean that he's up for free grabs and we can just say whatever we want without consequences, and we can treat him like he's public property. There's so many layers to this, but essentially I said that. I didn't say all that, but I basically made my opinion clear that I didn't think that we had any right to, be black sheeping him, so to speak. And I got unfriended over that. And I thought, this is interesting, right? People feel really, really strongly one way or the other when we talk about things like this. And that's that separateness between us, right? That's a difference in opinions, a difference of feelings and belief systems, and that's okay. And how does this really relate to the topic at hand today about Pluto and Aquarius? Well, it's a really good example of, number one, those systems in place, those institutional systems in place that are very hierarchical, you know what I mean? Based on hierarchy, the royal family. Do I think that in 50 years, the royal family is going to exist in the way that it does now? Absolutely not. Put me on record. Absolutely not. I don't feel like in the future, the royal family is going to be what it is today. No. Obviously, they will still be a family. People will still know who they are. Do I feel like the way things go with them now are going to be the same way? No. Do I feel like they're going to be publicly funded forever? No, I do not. That's one of those institutions I feel like will be broken down and dismantled. And I feel like we're witnessing that dismantling in real time right now. Politically, hospital based, right? The healthcare system, we're seeing it fall apart. Things have to be done differently. How that happens differently yet, we don't know. We have to walk that, right? I keep hearing over and over again, we learn best through tension, unfortunately. We learn best through, square peg, round hole, doesn't fit anymore. I'm going to try 1,000 times to get it to fit. Oh, it still doesn't fit? Okay, now we're innovative. Now we're going to think about a new way of doing that, right? This energy that comes in is going to, I keep feeling this building, this momentum of energy that surrounds us Beautiful image. I'll show it to you. I'll give it to you. Visualize this planet Earth. We're out in space looking at it, okay? And there's this beautiful purpley, kind of bluey wave vibration of energy around it. And it feels like a protective bubble. But so in terms of we're safe, we're going to be okay, we're good, we're divinely connected and divinely supported. However, lots of momentum, lots of energy, lots of things happening all at once to shake it up, right? We're going to ruffle in feathers for the next 19, 20 years. So it feels like there's a really big focus, not only on dismantling all those old systems, right? But on creating new ones, and it's almost like tweaking things that already exist. So I do feel like there will be many, many, many advancements with technology at a much more accelerated pace than we are prepared for. So I feel like potentially that might feel a little bit overwhelming because things are happening very, very quickly. But I do feel like the lesson in this is making technology work for everyone, making their lives easier and better versus just adding burden or responsibility to. And also, right now, technology, for the most part, there's an element, I believe, that technology keeps us separate again. Like the whole point of having, an iPhone or an Android or whatever else you're using is to keep you connected. We're all connected through this little device. But does it really? Grand scheme. In certain ways, sure it does. There's good. There's absolute good that comes out of it. But there's also negatives that come out with it. In some ways, it does keep us separated. In some ways, it does keep us trapped. It does keep us feeling kind of like we're hostage. I don't know about you, but I certainly have an addiction to my phone and I'm conscious of it. And I'm actively reminding myself almost daily, like, hey, do you think you've like scrolled that enough times? Like, what else do you think you're going to get from it? Go on, live your life, do something else. But I have to remind myself of it because I've been, and all of us, I feel our lives are so wrapped up in social media and in technology as we know it. I do feel technology is going to change rather than just benefiting certain people, making the rich richer. I feel like there's going to be a change from making technology work for us to make life easier. Now, I don't know where I heard this. I don't know if it was a podcast or I read it, but I remember at some point hearing somebody talk. I feel like it was a podcast talking about how the whole purpose, like spiritually, of technology was to make our lives easier. If there's AI and robots and things like that, it's to take over the tedious, demanding things that take us away from the things that AI and robots can't do. Creating with love, just creating in general, creating art, creating music. Like I know that robots and AI can do those things, but not the same way as humans can, right? So humans rather have a soul. That's my new, I combined soul and humans together and made us humans, which is really interesting because of the Schumann effect. Okay, that's an interesting blending of words. Anyways, so we have a soul, and that makes us different than a robot. That makes us different than AI. We create, we're here to create. We're here to do what we love. We're here to make each other and this world a more beautiful place and to get to enjoy it. And so things like robots, AI, other technologies are not meant to to add burden to our lives or to take us away from those things that make us uniquely human, that make us creative. They're here to do those tedious, mundane tasks so that we have more time for those things. So that's what's one of those reasons, after listening to that, actually, I thought, my goodness, after some reflection, my phone, yeah, there's some ways that it makes my life easier and better, but there's more ways that it does not. And it does not free me up, or I'm not allowing it to free me up in order to have more time to be creative, because all of my free time is then spent back on the phone again, right? So it's just like this vicious cycle. But I see that changing. I see that changing in the next 20 years, and generationally being quite different. I feel like healthcare is going to be a major, 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 major focus in the next 19, 20 years. Well, Pluto is in Aquarius. This is about progressive, collective progression, rather. This is about what's best for everyone. I think about, as I'm speaking, I feel as if things like treatments for cancers, for things like ALS, for things like Alzheimer's, all of that kind of stuff, I feel like the answer is out there and it's not very far. Some of those things I feel like the powers that be already know how to make better or to cure, and it's just not profitable for that to happen. But that's something I see overturning and becoming more focused on, using those robots, using those AI problems to cure certain ailments and diseases and things that are making human beings suffer. The answer is there for that. So I see a lot of health progressions for the better using technology. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was during the Industrial Revolution, the French Revolution, American Revolution, the Age of Enlightenment. So a lot of stuff happened during that time, right? And if you think about what Pluto represents and what Aquarius represents, I bet you'll be able to see some themes pop out. That was from 1778 to 1798. Okay, so 20-year period, a lot of things happened in that time period. I think you can expect more of the same for the next 20 years. Well, Pluto is in Aquarius. So I wrote down dismantling social hierarchies. That's a theme. The powers that be, right? The man, quote unquote. There's more resistance to that. There's more resistance to unaligned, unethical leadership. Now, I never get all very, very political on this podcast. There's a reason for that. I think I can be authentic and intentional, and people can probably feel what I'm aligned to without me having to say that. I feel like we all have our journeys, and one journey is not more spiritual or better than the other. There's a reason that people vote one way. There's a reason that others vote another way. It's what aligns with them and their soul in the moment. But what I will say is, when I really kind of sat with this and asked Spirit about, why would it go this way and not this way, or why would it go this way and not this way? What I was seeing was like a fork in the road, and the fork going in two different directions, but then coming together at the end. So it feels like, yes, there's purposeful separation when it comes to our politics and our political beliefs. But it feels like at the end of the day, it comes to one place. Okay. And so sometimes I feel, so what I feel about this is that we are moving in this direction. Okay. We're going in the direction of, Republicans. And we know that Donald Trump has won the election in the US. I'm Canadian, but I'm still, worldwide. We're all affected by what happens in the US. There's a reason for that right now, and we will know what that is in time. And without, again, getting too political here, either way, we're getting to the same place. We're taking plan A. We're going to experience certain things on plan A, different things than we would have experienced on plan A or on plan B, but both take us to the same place. Okay. So we'll certainly have different lessons on this end than we would have on this end, but ultimately, just like Aquarius is that wrecking ball that wants to get us to the same place, and we'll do so. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure story, is what I'm hearing from Spirit in this moment. Do you want to learn how to do this way? Or do you want to learn how to do it this way? Either way, you're going to learn it. That's what comes through. Reevaluation of labor and how we work. How we work is going to change. That's going to be a focus collectively. I feel like the younger generations, I've got I myself am a Zennial, so that's like a subgroup, a subgeneration in between Gen X and Millennial. I'm not an elder Millennial. I'm even older than that. I'm a Zennial. I think Zennial is like 1977 to 1981. I'm in there, and as is my spouse. And then our oldest kids, I believe, are Z's generation. All right, I'm a Canadian. What am I saying? Generation Z. Okay, we say Z in Canada. And then my youngest is an alpha. And I see the difference between the kids, like the older kids and the younger, and just the focus and, what's important and what's not okay and what is okay, like just very, very different. The younger generations are very much more community minded than any other one. Okay, it's very much about working together, about equality. I feel like Aquarius is a bit like a unicorn in a really wonderful way. In a surprising, mystical, magical way. Aquarius energy, like I said, is that otherworldly, almost alien like. It wants to strip away labels, it wants to strip away hierarchy, it wants to strip away separateness. At the end of the day, we're all one, right? We all go to the same place. We can't take anything with us, right? What we look like, our body, who we are in this lifetime. Yes, it's important, but at the end of the day, our souls all look the same, right? They have different lessons, they have different messages, they have different missions, but they all look the same. Underneath, we all look the same. We all bleed the same color, right? That is an Aquarian message. That's a Pluto in Aquarian messages. Learn that. And we're going to learn it this way because you chose not to learn it this way. All right? But that's where we're going. And I see that with the younger kids, my youngest being 8, almost 9 years old. He is very much like, why do we have to have labels? Why do you have to be a girl and I'm a boy? Why does that exist? Why is pink a girl color? Why is blue a boy color? Why does this happen? These are the questions that come from my 8-year-old. Labels, hierarchies don't make sense to younger generations. Let them question. Let them question. That's what they're here to do. I try very, very, very hard as a parent to allow him to navigate that and to ask these questions without projecting my own opinions on about what that is. I will often just redirect with another open-ended question and be like, because I want him to think about it. I want him to come up with his own reasonings. Anyways, off topic, kind of, but not really. So reevaluation of labor and how we work and when we work and why we're working. When I first started working with the spirit world, it became very apparent to me that our souls have an energy about them. They have a mission, so to speak, a frequency, and gifts and things we want to learn, etc., and things that we would be best suited for based on all of those things. And I remember kind of thinking about it once early on in the journey and thought, wouldn't it be an amazing world if when we were younger, someone was able to kind of pull those things out of us and say, you love to do this, don't you? Or you're super interested in this, aren't you? And then having the child be educated or receive experiences around those interests and those gifts and curiosities. That is where I see the future going when it comes to education. It's like, that's
what you're here for. That is your gift. So let's nurture that gift. I just got covered in head to toe goosebumps. Let's nurture that gift because that's what you're here to do in the world. And not only will you feel, imagine how so fulfilled you would feel and how much of an impact you would feel you are making. There wouldn't be like an existential crisis of what am I here for and what am I doing? Because you would know, because you would have been nurtured and you would have been taught to explore your curiosities and your interest. And you would be provided a society that supports that above everything else. That's what Pluto in Aquarius means for me moving forward. A revolution around the economy and economic disparity. Again, hierarchy. The poor, the rich, the in-between. The rich gets richer. That is not aligned with what is best for the collective. That is keeping us separate. That not, why is it that some people are extremely thriving and others are not? It's of importance right now for all of us collectively, generationally, to change that. It will take time. Okay, it will take quite a bit of time. I feel like the children that are being born during this next 19-year cycle are coming in especially to focus on that and inequality. And so, if you're as old as me or anywhere in that kind of age, we might be very old when all of this starts to happen, but it will happen. And I feel very, very, very positive and good about that. There's also a huge focus when it comes to a revolution or reevaluation around and invention and reinvention. Remember I said earlier, I felt as if some things would be tweaked, or it's like, okay, we're doing it this way when it comes to health, when it comes to certain social structures that we have, just to be tweaked. So rather than take education out totally, right? It's like, how can we still create an educational system that breeds community and connection, and all of those things that we need as little people, but in a different way, right? Rather than having that like sort of curriculum that everybody learns regardless of, we have something that's more tailored to each child. That's a focus that I think this newer generation will bring it in. And imagination focus is one thing that I wrote down. I feel like the next era is much more focused on imagination and what we can imagine. And interestingly enough, the last episode I put out was on the veil, and that really trickled down to what you perceive. What you perceive is what you believe, right? It's about perception and how that's connected to your belief systems, and that's connected to your experiences, etc., etc. So if we have our imagination being more nurtured and more of a focus on with our children, with the way we work, with the way we live, with the way we care for each other, then I feel like our perception will change and broaden out and bigger and thus raise the consciousness as is happening. I want to leave you with a quote. When I saw it randomly online, it didn't say who said this or who wrote this, so unfortunately I can't credit the person that did, but I was looking for something that really encapsulated the energy of Pluto and Aquarius and what's that all saying to us and what does that all mean. And I found this, and I'm going to end with this. May we all burn bright with hope for what will rise and no fear of the dark. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy. See you next week.
If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider hopping on over to wherever you listen to your podcast and giving it a 5-star review. Thank you so much in advance. If you'd like to keep in touch, please head over to my website, theintuitiverising.com to keep up with all the things that I have been doing. I also have a private Facebook community for people just like you. It's called the Intuitive Rising Community. All you gotta do is request to join, and I will let you in. Keep rising.